Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?
It's me, Egbert, once again. I'm the new owner of this station. I went out and hired the best talk radio consultant, Jeff Allen from News Talk STL, and told him to hire the worst talent he could find. Jeff did exactly as I told him. Ladies and gentlemen, here are Brad and John.
And it is Brad and John. Can I tell a hospital story, John?
Oh, yes, please do.
Okay. I told the story earlier in the first segment that I was gone for the past couple of days because I was in the hospital. I was in the Palace on Ballas, St. John's Mercy, right there at 40 and Ballas Road. Okay, once again, you and I deal with this issue all the time that nobody listens to radio anymore. Nobody listens to radio anymore. Nobody listens. Radio is old school. So Monday morning, I'm wheeled into a, shall we call it a procedure room, okay?
Okay.
And I'm on the gurney, and they're waiting to do a test on me. And in the room are two operating OR nurses, very highly skilled nurses, a couple of NPs, and a doctor. And as I'm laying on the gurney, I'm hearing this rock and roll music. I mean, like, shredding guitars. And I'm going, and I looked at the one nurse, and I said, "What music is that?" And she says, "That's KSHE."
Oh, that's great. Real rock radio.
Yes. I said, you guys, and once again, these are all, I don't think there was anybody in the room who probably made less than about $80,000 or $90,000. You know what I mean? And obviously the doctor's making six figures, and probably some of the nurses. I mean, some of the OR nurses can, be up there in six figures as well, too. So we're talking well-educated, and I said to her, I go, "Really?" She goes, "Yeah." She says some of the doctors will bring in their own phone and bring a little speaker in, and they have certain music they like to work to. But she says most of the time we just play KSHE. So when I got out of the hospital yesterday afternoon, I called Marty Linck. Marty Linck is the program director over at KSHE. He also, I think, runs The Point. And I've talked to him once before, and I have a background with Marty. When Marty was a young guy, I call him a young kid. He used to work at KSHE, the station up in Flow Valley. I don't know if I told you this, for a long time. I taught up there at 270 Tech, St. Louis Community College. And I had the longest part-time job of my career in the respect that they had a small radio station. At the time, it was a 10-watt station. I made it a 100-watt station. And very sadly, the guy who was their engineer was killed in a tower accident. He was climbing a tower, installing a new antenna on a tower, and one of the guy wires broke, and the tower fell over and hit an electric line, and he was electrocuted, and he died instantly. So they asked me if I would take over the engineering duties, which I did. And once again, it was temporary. It was supposed to be for like a couple months till they'd hire somebody, and I did it for 12 years. And Marty Linck probably doesn't have the best opinion of me because of the fact that Marty would call me all the time when he was a program director at the station. He would have whatever little problem there was, he would call me. And I would say to him, I said, "Marty, you know what? Don't take this the wrong way, but I think you can make it through your show without me coming, to adjust something or something like that." At times he would take it not so well. Now, once again, I'm part-time. At the time, I had moved to St. Charles County. So for me to drive all the way up into North County, and maybe, and I'm not trying to say I wouldn't do this just because of the fact that, I'm trying to help them out, but it got to the point where most of the things he requested were sort of nitpicky kind of stuff, and so I don't know if my relation with him was all that great. So anyway, I called up yesterday. They actually have a live receptionist over at Hubbard. She answers the phone. I said, "Can I talk to Marty Linck?" She puts me through to his voicemail. About 20 minutes later, he calls me back. We have a nice conversation. I thought I'd just pass this along. And him and I had the same conversation, same frustration. Everybody says, nobody listens to radio anymore. Here's these high-end medical professionals deep in the bowels of
Brad Hildebrand. Deep in the bowels of Brad Hildebrand.
No, they hadn't gotten him in yet. But deep in the bowels of the Palace on Ballas, Mercy, the big Mercy right there at 40 and Ballas, listening to KSHE. They're listening to the radio, okay? And once again, sort of frustrating in the respect that, you know, the Shakespeare quote, the news of my demise is what it, you know it.
The news of my demise has been greatly exaggerated. Wasn't that Mark Twain?
Somebody like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Hunter trials. You want to talk about this?
Yeah, I'm not an expert on it, but I see he was found guilty, Brad. What a travesty.
You know, what's so interesting about this is all the legal experts said this was really stupid, that he should have pled guilty, and the thing that came out of it for me was so sad is that I'm going to say things that here I'm maybe ticking people off, but I will say this as a father, okay? I have 4 kids. My oldest son, Brett, who we've actually had on the air here before, did not have the best young life. He got into some bad situation in his high school, got totally bored, ultimately dropped out of high school, didn't even finish high school, got himself in some trouble, and I was always there to try to help him out. Now, did I condone what he was doing? No. And there are times I had some strict conversations with him. I said, Brett, you got to get your act cleaned up. You can't be doing stuff like this. A couple situations were his own stupid doing. A couple situations were just him being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And the sad thing, the reason it got bad was, the reason he ultimately left high school is he had a principal who was in for him. And if there was any violence or any vandalism at the high school, this principal would call the police department and say, my son did it. So on 3 separate occasions, I'm with the Cottleville Police Department, which is, that's where Francis House Central is. That's where my kids went to school at, high school. And I'm there being interviewed by a detective. I'm sitting in the room, and all 3 times, my son had absolutely, positively bulletproof, alibis. To the point where at one point in time, they brought in 2 of his buddies, and they talked about they were here, and it was true. So this was sort of a situation that did not go well for my son. One time got arrested for something in St. Peter's, and we didn't even know about it. His mom and I didn't know about it. We didn't find out until later when we got a letter in the mail from the Missouri Department of DOR that his driver's license was suspended. And we're like, what is this? So I check into this thing, and he's been charged with something. I won't go into all the details. And I thought to myself, this is just BS. So me as the guy, I go up to St. Peter's, and I pull up the file and the whole bit. And once again, a lot of stuff in that case that was just bogus BS. And once again, I back the police, but you got good cops, you got bad cops. I'll leave it at that, okay? I got to the point where I persisted in bringing this up to these, I don't remember his name anymore. He's actually, first off, he turned out to be sort of a jerk. And then he actually turned into be a nice guy because he saw that what I was pointing out was true, that my son got railroaded, okay? After a year and a half, I got not only the case dropped, I got it expunged because of the fact that, my son didn't do what they said he did. Once again, he sort of got framed.
Yep.
Okay, point being, there's a point in this man's life, Hunter Biden's life, when his relatives, his girlfriends, his father, his mother, and it's actually his stepmother, should have done an intervention. Should have said, Hunter, we are taking control of your life. Your life is spinning out of
control. The tough love approach.
Right.
Brad?
Your life is spinning out of control. We don't care what it takes. If it takes us, sticking you in a room where you can't leave or something like that, but we have to get you straightened out. They never did that to him. Now, you don't tell me that they didn't see him flashing all the money going on. And the other thing is, you ladies out there, okay? How in the world you see his current wife, who is just drop dead, knockout gorgeous, okay? Who in their right mind would go near a guy like that with a 30-foot borrowed pole? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I don't get it. And the whole big, and then they talked about the jurors, or the jury experts and the legal expert kept talking about jury nullification. You know what that's all about, right?
Yep.
Okay, and they kept saying the aspect of that he's sitting behind him was his mother, the first lady, and his wife and his sister, and blah, 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 blah. And the thing that bothered me about a guy that, I say to myself, all the time, I don't say to myself, I say to you all the time, the government spends too much money, is the fact that if you know this crazy story that Jill Biden was on Thursday, that was D-Day, she flew home at government expense to be at the trial on Friday. Then she flew back to France to be with her husband at the state dinners on Friday night, Saturday morning, which I heard an estimate was $300,000 to $400,000. Okay, once again, I mean, how many people could the government write a check to $300,000 or $400,000 to and turn their life around? You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, exactly. And now the good thing is what you didn't mention. First of all, her name is Dr. Jill Biden, Brad. So let's show a little bit of respect to the honorarium. Also, the White House still has an excess of carbon credits from Michelle Obama's organic garden. So really, when you think about it, that trip was carbon neutral.
John, you know what's really good about you? There's a number of things good about you. You always bring up these little, would you call them a non sequitur kind of things?
Yeah. I mean, some of them are occasionally sequitur, but I would say that, it's a callback to previously. And it is Dr. Joe Biden.
Yeah,
okay.
she's got it.
Did you see this video where Biden is apparently defecating in his pants? Did you see this? I'm not a bathroom humor guy, but have you seen this?
I saw that live.
Oh, did you really watch it live?
Yes, because I told you when I was sitting in the hospital on.
Yeah, you were watching. Yeah, you did.
I watched it live.
You watched the whole thing. Yeah, I mean that was that's embarrassing. And again, I'm not a bathroom humor guy, but that was like, I don't know.
Well, and that if you know this whole crazy thing where they had the thing, what was it? Was it yesterday or over the weekend? They had the Juneteenth celebration, which was early because of the fact that he's got to be someplace else or something like that. Do you see the video of him standing there when everybody around him is rocking and dancing? He looks like he's a mannequin. People are going like
he's not in a good position.
Well, once again, and I will blame this on Jill. I will blame it on Jill. Jill should say, Joe, you know what? I love you. It's been a long, good run. You've had 50-plus years in politics. It's time to drop out.
I thought you were going to say, I'm leaving you for Brad Hildebrand.
No, you need to pass.
And you know what I heard, by the way? Thanks to the doctors at the Palace on Ballas, they were listening to KSHE. I have it on good authority that they started calling you sweetmeat, Brad.
No.
And those were just the female nurses. I think the men weren't involved in that joke. But the women were calling you sweetmeat. I don't know what that's about, but I don't know. Maybe they were taking some liberties.
It's time for Joe to pass the baton. And it's time for Donald Trump to essentially say, you know what? I think I can win this race, but in the better good of the country, I'm out of here. And once again, we still have time. There's 4 months or something like that, 5 months until the election.
Yeah.
There's still the Republican and the Democratic National Conventions coming up, which once again, back in the old days, that's where we selected the actual presidential candidates at the conventions, not 3 or 4 or 5 months ahead of the conventions where we have right now, where everybody's done, which happened the same thing in the 2020 election, even to a certain extent.
Are you still doing that whole plan to nominate Tulsi Gabbard from the floor? Are you still behind that whole thing?
What's interesting is I've heard some people may mention some good things about her. And I think she's an impressive woman, and take the woman out of it, she's just an impressive person. She's still in the military. I think she's like a lieutenant colonel now or something like that. And she's seen, action in, I don't know if she was actually in combat, but she was in combat zones in Iraq and Afghanistan, and I think Qatar and places like that. If you've ever heard her speak, she's really good. The problem most of the Republicans have a problem with her is the fact that she used to be a Democrat. Okay, let me mention one name. Ronald Reagan.
Is it R squared?
Yes, Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan, who used to be a Democrat. And Ronald's famous quote was, I didn't leave the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party left me. Which essentially was what, she hasn't made that same quote, Tulsi hasn't, but she essentially said the same thing. and essentially said, you know what, I can't deal with the AOCs of the world. Now, obviously, on the other side of the equation, you've got the MTGs and some of the crazy nuts and stuff like that. But once again, it's to the point where they're the extreme. You got the Matt Gaetz and the who essentially blew up the Kevin McCarthy thing. But I don't know, John, I'm done.
You're alive, and I'm so happy that you're speaking, Brad. Now, I had pneumonia like 6 years ago, and I lost my voice, and we are lucky that you still have your voice, Brad. I'm so happy that, and I don't mean to minimize it, but I'm so happy that it was just pneumonia and that it wasn't something more serious. Do you know what I mean?
Well, it actually was something more serious, but that's a whole other story.
Oh, I thought it just turns out that it was just pneumonia.
Last week was something else, but that's a whole other story.
I got you.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm thinking to myself, I'll tell you right up front, this is an audible. I can't edit up the show right now. I gotta sit down for a while. So,
Brett, I got you. I understand.
So,
and you know what? We'll be in contact today, and we'll see how you feel tomorrow.
Okay, we'll work on it. John, thank you very much. You've made my day today, and I'm glad that you put up with my cantankerousness, whatever you want to call it. But I mean,
oh, Brad,
well,
I'm glad that we still have you here, pneumonia and all, and we'll talk to everybody tomorrow.
There's some things that just drive me nutbags. You know what I'm saying?
I do. And it's when you're listening, when you're at the hospital and they're doing Spotify instead of KSHE. It drives me nuts.
That's right. Nobody listens to radio. Yeah, the doctors at Mercy do. Okay, John, say goodbye.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?